Good evening, everyone. I was just going to let you keep going. We are back for our Studio Ghibli retrospective. We're live 3 days on the trot this week, building a bit of a habit of it this week. We are talking about the 2011 film From Up on Poppy Hill, directed by Goro Miyazaki. This is his second directorial film. I was going to say second directorial debut. You get one directorial debut, and that was when we talked about Tales from Earthsea, which probably isn't the best reviewed Studio Ghibli film out of all of them, but he's back. So his dad Hayao Miyazaki must have okayed it this time, because remember the behind the scenes from Tales from Earthsea, there was a lot of sort of, is he ready to direct, a lot of backhanded compliments and whatnot, but I think he actually did a pretty damn good job with this one.
He did as good as you can with this story.
Yeah, we're both sort of on the money with this one. I think we've chatted very, very briefly about our thoughts on this one.
It was like the most least offensive kind of background thing. You know, it wasn't bad. I didn't disenjoy it. That's a word now. That's a new word.
Disenjoy it. There you go.
Yeah, that's a new word. I didn't disenjoy it. That's I'm like Shakespeare, just make up new words.
Yeah, exactly. It worked for him.
But yeah, no, I didn't not enjoy it. I thought it was fine, but I wouldn't go past that. I mean, there's elements which were great. Like the animation, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was really nice to look at. There were elements of like the fades and stuff, like when it would go to like a shot and it would fade out, go to the next scene rather. Like there was a lot of things. I was like, this looked really, really nice. And the music was brilliant. But, you know, as a whole movie, it was just this unoffensive, like, that was nice. And kind of it.
And maybe that's all it needed to be. Maybe it didn't need to be this like massive, grandiose thing. And I agree with you. It does feel sort of paint by numbers a little bit. Studio Ghibli, it hits all of the beats that you've come to expect. I will say, comparing this to Tales from Earthsea, this one definitely feels completely at home as a Studio Ghibli film. I know one of our criticisms against Tales from Earthsea was that we thought the animation was fine. We thought as a film it was like bang average. We probably wouldn't rave over it or watch it again. But we did express that just visually watching it, it felt like any kind of run-of-the-mill anime. It sort of lacked that je ne sais quoi, that extra sort of like Studio Ghibli sheen to it. Whereas this one actually absolutely did. Like watching this is unashamedly a Studio Ghibli film. The colors and the animation is absolutely on point. And I like the feel of this film. You described this in a voice note to me, that it feels just like a nice, comfortable, welcoming, inviting film that you could like throw on in the background as a kid, for example.
Yeah.
And I agree. Yeah,
that vibe of like, you know, when you were younger and you didn't have any problems, and your biggest problem was, do I pick up the square block or the circle block? And you just like you know, that little kid kind of thing. It's like that. Like there are no issues. It's just there, and it was just nice, you know.
The story is very simple as well. So it's set in 1963 Japan, and it tells the story of Umi and a bunch of, you know, high schoolers who decide to clean up their school's clubhouse because it's under threat of being demolished and renovated from because of the 1964 Summer Olympics. And it's sort of the school kids trying to go to like the class, not the class president, sort of like the head of the school, the one who's sanctioning this project, in order to convince him not to demolish their schoolhouse, essentially. And that's really it. It doesn't go beyond that in terms of like an inciting incident. Your 90-minute movie is essentially that. It really reminded me of the plot from, have you ever seen Footloose before, the 80s movie? Mm-hmm. And it's like, we want a party, you know, with these young upstarts, and all the adults are like, no, you know, you got to believe in Jesus, and you shall not go dancing or being young and having fun. And I mean, it's not that religious angle to it, but it reminded me of, we want this school building, this clubhouse is important to us as students. All of us want it. And there is a little bit of a generation clash going on in some of the subtext in this film, sort of the new generation moving on in a post-war Japan. And they're sort of like leading the way. They're leading the new generation. You've got sort of like the old guard, the old sort of curmudgeonly school masters and whatnot, and chairmans and whatnot that they're having to go up against. So I did enjoy that aspect to it. I just love the setting of this one, and I have that with a lot of Studio Ghibli films, in that it's just like a really nice, quaint sort of like port town or seaside village, wherever it happens to be. I love sort of like the environment in Ponyo and Kiki's delivery service, how it's just this nice, small, unassuming village. Everyone knows each other. And I think that sort of goes in line with
I
what you said. It's that
fucking
nice
hate that.
environment.
Like,
Oh,
I hate that thing in right. I like it in movies because movies it's cool, but I hate that in real life. If you live somewhere everyone knows each other, I fucking hate it. I do. I'm like, don't know my shit. Like, leave me alone. I fucking hate that.
right.
But in a movie, it's fine.
Yeah, it's escapism. It's escapism. There is a little bit of sort of like an inciting incident in this film where there's a little bit of a love story in there as well. I think it's much better handled in this than it was in Ocean Waves. When we talked about that, we talked about how that was a very sort of antagonistic relationship. We didn't really buy the love story in that film. And
Why is
Ocean
it always
Waves
a love
was
story? Why is it
so
always a fucking love story?
I quite liked it in this. I thought it was quite an interesting angle. I really liked the lead character Umi. I thought she had that self assurance. A lot of the female protagonists in all of these Studio Ghibli films are very well written, in my opinion, because they're still very traditional. They're very polite, but they're incredibly hardworking and diligent, and it's just all good things. All good things. So I really liked her character. And there is a love story in there, but I think it's done well. There's a little bit of an intrigue there where this person who she falls in love with at school, who's the school newspaper president, she falls in love with him. They become completely enamored with each other, and then there's this sort of like weird turn where they find out that they may or may not be siblings, and she's like absolutely distraught by this because she loved this guy. And I don't know if this was in the English dub, but there was a bit in the Japanese language one where she says like, I don't care if you're my brother, I love you. I don't know if that was translated exactly the same in the
fair, like if that was a legit thing, what would you do? What would you do?
That has happened to people, right? Where they've been married for years or something and they find out that they're sibling. I mean, that's awkward.
What would you do? I mean, it's legal, but what would you do? Well, it's not legal to marry.
No, that's not legal. That's not legal.
Cousins are fine, but what I'm saying, what would you do? You'd be like, huh. Like, you just wouldn't know where to go because you see this person. It's like when you've known someone all your life growing up and you see them as a sibling. And like, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like that. It's completely the opposite. You're like, I don't really know what to do with this information.
So after that point, they just become friends. And then by the end of the movie, there's a revelation where it's like, oh, actually, no, you're not siblings. That you both carried this same picture around with you because both of your respective fathers died in the war. One died in the Korean War, and I think one died post World War II. And there was a moment where Umi's father took in this child and delivered it to another family, didn't he? So there was some confusion there. Yes, exactly, but without the broomstick. Yeah. And that's really it. Like, honestly, there isn't much else to say about this. I did like the colors. I did love the location of the clubhouse. I thought that was really cool when they spruced it all up and you've got all the different rooms and the different what do you call them? The different this feels sort of like, I'd say more American. I know it's Japanese, but you have the different, you have like the sociology lot and then you have the science lot. What do you call those?
Well, what, like the cliques?
There's cliques, but they're different. I forgot what you call them. Not classes.
Society?
They're like clubs. Would you say that?
Society?
Societies. That's it. Yeah, you have like the band society, and
yeah, I mean,
you've got all them.
One thing I did like that was in the English translation was it did feel more authentic. It wasn't like, and I think we spoke about this before. Remember in Pokemon where they would do like in the dub, they would have like, for instance, in the sub, so in the original, they'd have like a rice ball they'd be eating it because that's what they, that's the Japanese thing. But then in the dub, they would change all that to be like a burger and stuff, and that was so unauthentic. That's like, okay, you've translated it into English, so that fair enough, but like it's still in Japan. Like, I don't understand why we had to take away as much culture like as that, and that was really, really dumb. But in this, like for instance, like they mentioned, like they in the English dub, they still mention yen, like it wasn't like dollars and stuff like that, which I know, like again, Death Note, they mention so in the sub, when he buys like a little TV, he's like, oh, it costs X amount of yen or whatever. And then in the dub, he's like, oh, that cost you $10. And it's like, that's Americanized. And it's always quite weird when they do that. I mean, I do kind of get little things like that. I mean, that's not groundbreaking to do like, well, that's not like, law breaking, I guess, to do that whole like change yen to like, it's one word. But sometimes they change so much becomes unauthentic, and at least in this, it didn't feel too much like that. So it was still all right.
That's a great point, actually, because I've been meaning to ask that for a while, how it comes across, because what I love about these films is that you do get an insight into Japanese culture. You know, some of them are like really mythology heavy and folklore, you know, stuff like Pompoko, Spirited Away, all the stuff that you have in the background that we don't really understand probably from a Western audience, but you look into it and you realize that, you know, like the whole Shinto religion and everything like that in Totoro, this was kind of all new to me. I didn't really know much about it. And from watching these films, I have a slightly better understanding of it. And it's the same with this, yeah, like their everyday way of life, like the very traditional sort of like gender roles and everything, and everyone seems really respectful of each other, and they have their own sort of set, I don't know, what would you say, like set goals, not set goals, but yeah, like traditional values and things like that. That definitely comes through. And I was going to ask, do you still get those aspects through in the English language?
That's the thing. I think it is. You do get that more. Like, as I say, this one I did, because there was a few things like that. I thought, well, they've kept that, which is nice, and I wish I've seen with these Studio Ghibli ones. I mean, there's, you know, so it has been quite good. Didn't they do? Wasn't it at the beginning they did this thing that was just like you can't change anything?
Well, the start of this film?
No, the start of Studio Ghibli completely. They did like this whole we vow to not be able to change anything in the dubs or something. Wasn't there? Like,
oh, there was a no cuts policy. I know the first ones, they were kind of butchered for Western audiences. They were chopped up, they were shortened.
Yeah, and at least that's good, because I think sometimes it just takes away. I understand when you get the kids things that are popular, like Pokemon. Well, I don't understand it because I still think it shouldn't happen. But I understand that it's like, but this is a big mainstream thing. This isn't as much. But it still annoyed me when I found out with Pokemon, which I didn't find out 2 years later, because when I was a kid, it didn't mean anything to me. But when I got older, I was just like, oh, we missed out this and this. And I was like, it was just weird.
We both talked about how much we really love the music to this one. The soundtrack is incredible. Now, I was watching it and I was thinking, oh, this sounds like we're back to like a Joe Hisaishi score. It's not. It's Satoshi Takibi. Japanese names. I'm terrible at pronunciations, but I was actually trying to see if they've scored anything with Studio Ghibli before, and I couldn't see if they have. You click on their hyperlink on Wikipedia, and there's not that many. You know, there isn't like a big list of everything that they've worked on. So yeah, but suffice to say, I can't remember if this person scored Studio Ghibli films before. Maybe they score some ones afterwards. It's an absolutely spectacular score. I was just completely enraptured by it, and it beautifully meshes with the really nice, idyllic, quaint imagery that we see.
Yeah, from the beginning, it was already with the like piano kind of. It was really nice from the beginning. I really did like it.
There were moments that almost reminded me of Kingdom Hearts. I was actually going to genuinely, I was going to message you because I watched this film earlier this morning, and I was going to say, like, I think you'll really like the music. There was one piece of music in particular, this sort of like soft piano piece.
I know what you're on about, but yeah,
it reminded me of Dearly Beloved from Kingdom Hearts, and I was going to message you saying, like, I think you'll like the music to this, but I didn't have to because, you know, you messaged me about an hour or so ago saying
it was good. It was not as good as Totoro. That still holds the top.
Nothing will be.
That still holds the best.
So yeah, it's really difficult to talk about this one because it's a nice film. It's well animated. I'd say the
Jamie Lee Curtis in it.
It did in your version, yeah. You got Jamie Lee Curtis in it. Who else did you have in your one? I actually need to bring up a.
I can't remember who was it. It's Jamie Lee Curtis. I can't remember the names. They weren't
let's see,
huge, but they were like average kind of. Yeah.
The star power didn't sort of draw away from the character or anything.
It really didn't. That's what I'm saying. I had to be like, oh yeah, it's this person, and like it wasn't like that. Whereas sometimes you're there going, who's this person? Who's this? But it wasn't like that at all. The voice acting was very, very done very, very well. It was across the characters. It was great.
I really particularly liked the imagery of Umi's character sort of flying the flag every day. It was like a routine for her in sort of remembrance of her father and people that died at sea, and just sort of like ease people who are sailing past and can see it every day. I thought that was a really nice motif that sort of brought the main two protagonists together. I think it's one of the final shots in the movie as well, where they've got that sunset on the sea and both of them are together. And it's sort of this ambiguous ending, really, because you assume that they're going to try and reconnect, but if you loved someone and then for an extended period of time thought you were siblings with that person, and then it turns out, actually, no, you weren't siblings, that's got to be really, really difficult to sort of do the mental gymnastics of that
Yeah,
again. To, do
it's
you know what
gotta
I
be
mean?
really, really weird. I think it'd be even weirder if you found out she might be your daughter. That'd be even weirder.
Oh God,
That would be
yeah,
like, well, I've already been there. Imagine that, like that.
you'd be bringing out
Imagine
the
that.
you'd be bringing out the banjo then, wouldn't you? Christ Almighty.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, this film is actually really difficult to talk about. Like 15 minutes in, I feel like this is probably going to be one of our
It's
shortest
really,
reviews.
the story is so. Would I say bland? I don't know if that's the right word, but it's so very it happened, and you're like, yeah, that was because I did literally that. My reaction to the movie afterwards was like, yeah, that was nice, and I had a biscuit, and
Good
my
time.
yeah, like, do you know what I mean? That's what it was. That it was just very like I didn't think like much about it afterwards, aside from literally the music is the bit. The music is great, and that is a thing where I would listen to that soundtrack again. That is a movie where yeah, I would listen to that soundtrack again. It wouldn't be a movie I'd watch again because it would feel very pointless. It's it's kind of like when you go, like when you go into a room and in that room you got a guitar in that room, right? This is a great analogy. But when you go into a room, you got a guitar in that room, you're like, cool. This is basically like opening the door to get to that room. You're not excited about opening the door. You just did it, and you're like, it was fine. It didn't eat me. Like, and that is what this movie is. It's like it was fine.
There you go. Get that on the poster.
Yeah.
Get that on the review poster right there.
It's like
I
those.
agree. I think the direction on this one isn't outstanding. Like, I mean, if you're going to compare this to a Totoro or a Princess Mononoke, which might be really unfair to do because I know those are completely
Or
different
Spirited
films.
Away. That was good too.
Like when you look at that, like the direction behind that, the vision behind it, you're like, wow, this is jaw-dropping stuff. And this film isn't bad to look at. The animation's, absolutely sumptuous as it usually is with a lot of these Ghibli films. I think Goro definitely proved himself more of a director on this one. It could be because Hayao Miyazaki himself had a little bit of input on this in terms of the screenplay. It was written by his father, whereas I know there was that whole to-do on Tales from Earthsea where the one who wrote the books, she was initially under the impression that Hayao Miyazaki would be directing, which later she found out wasn't the case, but she thought he would still be penning the screenplay, which turned out to not be the case. And then she was sort of left with a film version of her books, which was completely inaccurate and also a pretty,
Why?
underwhelming Studio Ghibli film.
Why do schoolgirl uniforms in Japan look like sailors?
Yeah, it's sort of,
They look
yeah,
like sailors, don't they?
yeah, a little bit. It's sort of like the ascot thing they wear, I suppose, isn't it? I guess. I don't know.
But they're all very because in Japan they're all quite because I mean I haven't researched every country, but majority I think like because in America obviously they don't wear school uniforms to school, whereas like over here obviously we do and everything. It's quite I say a proper kind of ish look. I mean, it was never. I mean, you wore a tie at school, and not every school does. It was like I think first school I went to wore a tie, and then I was at a school where it was like we wore polo shirts. So it's like a here and there sort of like as long as you wear a uniform, it's kind of like what I mean, like a up. What's it called? Where you dress up like not dress up, but you know what I mean, upper
Formal.
Yeah, it's got a kind of formal look we have to the sort of education system, that sort of stuff. But Japan is very on it with the way they stand, the way like their traditions. And I think this movie showed that, which is great. And I've always loved one thing. This isn't the movie, but I've always loved like Japanese houses, like the wooden sort of look and the whole. I just love that kind of look to things. And I think, as I say, well, that's not about the movie because that's just Japan in general. But this movie showcased that well in like a Japanese sort of place. And there's this movie, Totoro, and the other movie I think stood out for me with like Japanese housing and stuff was Grave of the Fire, Grave of the Fireflies. That showed that sort of aesthetic and that day in the life look really well. I think like obviously they've all got that sort of look because the kind of thing it is, but I think this was another one that showed that really well, and it's just a nice kind of look. It's a little town you could go to where nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
Where that is a thing, nothing bad happens here, and nothing happens here. It just felt like that.
Yeah, it feels like it's a sort of a Japan on the rise again post-war. You've maybe still got some of those sensibilities in there, in that they're still dealing with some of the effects post-war, i.e., like Umi's father dying in the Korean War, and you know, the what was the other character's name? Is it Shun? Sorry, how his father died post World War II as well. But it feels like it's a Japan on the rise again, and it's becoming more, you know, like colorful, and things are slowly returning to some sort of like idyllic sense, I guess. And yeah, you talked about how formal the students were at the school. I actually really liked how respectful they were. Like, there's a bit where they go to the chairman, and they're really diligent. They're on it. They've got a goal. They want to keep this clubhouse. They don't want to see it demolished, and they're like, we're going to wait here for him. And the secretary's like, look, he might not even have time to see you today because you haven't made an appointment. And it's like, we're fine, we'll sit here. And then it cuts to a great wide shot, which I was going to try and find as the wallpaper, actually, where all three of them are just sat upright like this, waiting to go into.
Really, I spoke about, like, for instance, like America, they don't make kids wear school uniforms and stuff. Like, it's less formal. But they also, when they go in, don't they all have to, like, stand there and, like, pledge allegiance to the flag?
To the flag, yeah.
Like, you've never had British people go into a school and fucking stand up and pledge allegiance. Like,
well, I mean, I went to a C of E school, unfortunately, and we had to, like, pray in front of a fucking candle every day. So it's just as good as.
That was, I'd never had that.
It was highly questionable. Wasn't a good time. I quickly became an atheist, you know, but still. I was going to say, yeah, and one scene that I really like, and there's quite a lot of subtext to this, but you don't really get any masses of information on this. When they go to the chairman, you've got the two male students who are very like, yes, sir, and they're very respectful and, you know, manners out the wazoo. But the chairman seems to be drawn to, this is going to sound dodgy saying this, he seems to be drawn to Umi's character, but it was almost like a fatherly kind of way. Like, he takes an interest in it, like he appreciates her spirit, and I think he asks about her father, and she says that, you know, he passed away in the Korean War. And I feel like it's her influence which convinces him to keep the clubhouse going, or piques his interest at least.
You know, that's a weird thing, because you meant that, I can't remember what movie it is, but I swear there's a movie where there is a child. I don't know how old. I can't remember. I know there's a vague thing, like a little girl, and then it's like her dad is looking after her for something or whatever. But people are quick to, when they don't realize it's her dad, it's like this random dude is getting too close to this girl. So that fatherly thing, when it's a father on its own, is always looked at differently, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, it was just things like you notice about that scene, how, you know, he talks to the two lads, but she's sort of like not sitting opposite the chairman. I think she's sort of off to the side a little bit, and then she just commands his attention. He's just sort of focusing on her. He's turned away from the two guys in front of him. I don't even think he's being like disrespectful or anything like that. He actually seems pretty cool, the chairman, especially when he says like, I'll come and visit tomorrow, and they all sort of like welcome him with open arms and banners and music and things like that, and he's really impressed by the students. But I do think it's Umi's influence. And it's really important that she's there as well, because originally it was just going to be the two lads that were going to go to the chairman, and then I can't remember who suggests it. They say like, Umi, you need to come with us as well, and I almost feel like it was that female touch. It was her personality, and that sort of swayed it in the end and kept the clubhouse. But yeah, it's a very simple story, and here's the thing: like, my biggest criticism against it is that it's not this. It's not pushing the envelope, really. It does feel sort of like akin to a lot of stuff that we've seen before. It may feel like a little bit samey, maybe a little bit safe. But here's the thing. Did it need to be this huge envelope pushing thing? Does it really need to be that? I don't think it did.
It doesn't need to be changed. It's just, it was fine.
Yeah.
You know? It's just a very nice, cool. That was fine.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's okay to have films like that. You know, it's not bad. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen. It just sort of is. I'm happy I saw it. I had a good time with it for 90 minutes, and we move on. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
So, about your kid. Not that you had a good time with it for 90 minutes, but like, like, imagine you had like two kids and you just go, yeah, like you had one, you're like, it's great. And the other one, you're like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, sometimes it's okay just to be okay.
But saying that, it's we're not giving it like a glowing response, are we? It's sort of this in between. It is sort of the positive end of average, I would say.
It's fine, it's nice, but I think when you watch a movie, because you kind of want that whole, like, you want to be entertained for an hour and a half, and it's not that it wasn't entertaining, it was just very like, yeah, like you say, like, it's not one you go away and talk to people about. You just go, yeah, it's okay, cool,
yeah,
I saw it, nice.
if someone hasn't watched a Studio Ghibli movie before and they say like, "Give me some
It
to,"
doesn't fly the flag.
you wouldn't pick. Oh, the first one you've got to watch is From Up on Poppy Hill.
It doesn't make them look bad. It's not like one where you go, "Oh, that's one of the worst." It's not one like that where it puts a negative. It's just if this was the first to watch, you'd think they're all quite average. You go, no, there are ones much better.
Yeah,
it's just
I agree. I know we're late getting to this comment. I do apologize, Bath Time. Bath Time says, "What the fuck is this? The Chris Reviews Industrial Complex 3 days in a row." Yeah, I know. We've been putting them out this week, haven't we? Front loaded the week for sure, but we're going to be returning to just 2 streams next week. We've got Oz the Great and Powerful on Monday, and we've got the next Studio Ghibli film review on Wednesday. And that next Studio Ghibli film is going to be The Wind Rises, returning to Hayao Miyazaki with that one. 2013 movie, back to 2 hours and 6 minutes. So we're back up there with the runtime. I think
place for movies that are over 2 hours.
The one after that might actually be the longest Studio Ghibli movie. I'm just going to confirm that.
3.5 hours.
The one after that is 2 hours 17 minutes. That might actually be the longest one. It is so far. Let me just keep checking. I'm nearly at the top of the list. Yes, that's the longest Studio Ghibli movie. Not next week's, the one after that. So we've got The Wind Rises next week. Again, don't know anything about it, so looking forward to that. We are 5 weeks away. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 weeks away from finishing this retrospective. So we'll have gotten through 24 movies in that time, which is pretty good going. It's almost, it's 5 off or so, isn't it? The next big retrospective that we've got planned for next year, which I don't think we'll announce just yet. I've given people clues. I said that, it's another big animation industry. We've just sort of given away that there's about,
It starts off amazingly.
It does start off amazingly. There's a big drop off, definitely. There's about 30 films total. I don't think we can give them any more clues than that. I think they've got enough to go on right there.
There's a big drop off. There is a big drop off.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
But if you have seen From Up on Poppy Hill, let us know your thoughts. Maybe this is one of your favorites, perhaps, or maybe you agree with us. Maybe it's sort of bang average. If you have seen it or have anything to comment on all of the Studio Ghibli movies, we'd love to hear from you because, we're sort of coming towards the end. We've still got over a month, so we've still got time, but we are coming to the end of this.
No, we have not returned to Oz. The other one, we did
Oz the Great and Powerful. Next Monday. I'm actually really looking forward to that. That's a film that's sort of always been somewhere on my list of, there was another Wizard of Oz movie, which I never watched. So, we'll see.
I don't know if our views will differ.
Yeah, maybe. Have you watched it now? Have you watched the whole thing?
I've watched most of it, but I don't know if that also tells you the whole. I haven't watched it all.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see.
I like Sam Raimi, so if there's some Sam Raimi-isms in there,
I like Samuel Jackson, but he's not in it.
And please do consider subscribing to the channel. As I said, we've done 3 reviews this week, so we're going to take a little bit of a break now for the rest of the week. But as mentioned, we'll be back with 2 reviews next week, so we hope to see some of you there. Bath Time. I can neither confirm nor deny whether that is going to be one of our retrospectives. We've actually got 2 retrospectives, one mini retrospective and then one chonker of a retrospective.
What's funny about this? Sometimes you say that and you're like, I can't give it away, and I'm sat there just like, I have no idea what it even is. Like I do, but I'm like, do you know what? I don't remember. And then you'll be like, oh, this one. I'm like, there you go. Yeah. So I would be no help.
That time says, will you ever watch the Years a Slave series? Personally, I've only ever seen 13 Years a Slave. That time says Tarantino and Pixar. Ooh.
Together.
Yeah.
On the same day, each.
I wonder if Tarantino, speaking of, you get Samuel Jackson in that movie then, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Tarantino's doing it.
Yep. We should do that. Tarantino and Pixar on the same day. So the first day, Toy Story and Reservoir Dogs. Second week, Bug's Life and what's the second one?
I wonder if we could find anything that would connect each of the films in some way. The only thing I can think of is Reservoir Dogs. You've got Steve Buscemi, who also does the voice of Randall in Monsters, Inc. But you'd be pairing it with Toy Story. I'm like, There's got to be something.
There's definitely something. There's probably a joke in there as well somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. But we'll confirm it probably at the beginning of next year. Well, we'll have to because that's when our retrospectives will be starting. So, stuff coming out. plans, any video ideas that you want to see from us, any other big sort of like retrospectives or things that you'd be curious to check out, let us know. We'll take things on board and we'll see if we can add it into our very busy schedules throughout the week. But yeah, no, all good things. Thank you to Bath Time for jumping on and commenting, and anyone else who was watching along too. And we'll see you next week on Monday for Oz the Great and Powerful. Take care, everyone.